are.
I'll still
Yeah.
try
Be
not
authentically
to, but
I guess let's just start off by, why don't you tell us how you feel about your performance today at Nationals?
It's still pretty fresh, so I don't really.
What's the first?
Every hour, it's a different feeling. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
At one moment, it's like, yeah, that was amazing. I'm so excited to compete again. And then the next moment, you're like, oh, why did I miss that jerk? That was so dumb. Overall, I'm happy with it. I'm building. I feel like I'm building. So it was a good. It was a good day for sure. I'm happy to have attempted 100, come pretty close. 78's a comp PR. Like overall, I can't be too disappointed in it, but I definitely feel like there was more there. Yeah, today and in the next couple months for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from watching it today, we could definitely tell you had more in the tank.
Yeah.
At least it looked that way to the spectators.
Yeah, it was a good day. It was a good day. I'm happy with it.
And just since it's my first time seeing you actually compete at Nationals, are you normally this intense when you compete, or was this something new?
I haven't always been, and I don't know. Sometimes I think it's getting a little bit out of control, but it's so I yell a lot, I guess, and I get pretty fired up on the platform. It's not something I've always done. You know, I've always felt like those nerves, and people think it's an amping up thing, and it's not. I'm coming down.
Okay.
So I'm freaking out inside, and I'm trying to take it down a notch. Sometimes it is. It's just sort of like a self-regulation thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm bringing myself down by releasing some of that extra energy that otherwise would make my lifts kind of all over the place. But
I can
so
totally
yeah,
relate.
I definitely get fired up in competition, but I get fired up in training too.
Yeah.
I'm just an emotional person.
Hey, I totally get it. I'm the same. I can relate to the yelling and you know, whatever you need to do to amp yourself up or bring yourself to level in competition or in training, right? Like sometimes I save that as a hip pocket item, like to throw in the yelling and the screaming, you know, mid lift or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, you know, some people don't like it, but at the end of the day, it's gonna help you.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it has to be authentic.
Yeah.
Like I know if I'm not feeling it, then
You're not gonna
I'm
do
not feeling it. If I'm tired that day, like there's nothing.
Yeah.
And yelling doesn't. It's just a waste of energy.
Yeah.
But when it's too high, then it's an easy way to kind of bring me down a little bit. Usually that's where I am. I'm not usually too mellow. Like I don't usually need to amp myself up. I'm usually like right on the edge. But yeah.
It was the perfect amount of energy, though. I think I can say for the both of us when we were watching.
Yeah, might have needed a little more for the jerk, but it was. I heard from some of the other lifters in my session that it was bring them up too.
Yeah.
Or or not, or what?
They're
Like
inspiring.
they were too nervous, and then it kind of relaxed them. So.
You're like, everyone, calm
Yeah,
down.
let's go.
That's awesome.
It's also like a really important thing to hear that you're doing it to bring yourself down, because I find normally for weightlifters, oftentimes when we go on to that competition platform, there's a lot of nerves going on, and trying to get those under control can be challenging for some people.
Yeah, and it's taken me a while to kind of develop strategies to deal with that, and a lot of it happens before I hit the platform anyway, and I've been kind of working on my emotional state in the days leading up to it and trying to kind of regulate that, but yeah, it's definitely one method that seems to work pretty well for me anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And just on like, I guess a side tangent about like competitions and stuff, you've been working for, or you've been working under Greg for about a year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah. I started December of 2018. No, 2017. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, just after the World Championships.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind us asking, but like, what was the reason for that?
There were a lot of reasons. One, I guess really just the biggest reason was that I didn't feel like I was getting closer to my potential. There were things that I knew were upcoming, mostly the Olympic qualification and that sort of qualification period, and I had stalled out in competition for a long time, and not just in competition, like my training was up and down and then down again and then down further and then up again, and it was just not, I wasn't working on the things that I thought I needed. and luckily I was able to get in touch with him, and we had a mutual friend. Otherwise, I think my email probably would have been lost forever through their remote athlete search engine. But yeah, luckily he was able to take me on and willing to take me on as an athlete, and I think it's been really, really great.
Yeah, you've done very well over the last year and a half. I mean, especially since you started working with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So what's it like though, being a remote athlete?
It's tough. It's tough in some ways, and then in other ways, it's more convenient for my life. So the benefits of it is primarily that I get to train on my own schedule. So before I started, when I was training with a coach in person, it was coaching during the day, and then waiting, and then coaching a second class, and then training from 7. The class was 7 to 10, but usually it extended till sometimes close to midnight, and then I have to do it the next day. And just being forced to train after a full day of working and coaching, and you're mentally tired, and I had eaten all of my food by that point, and including the food I was supposed to save till the end. And you just eat. So it was just becoming exhausting to train that way, and I was never able to really bring out the best of my training and get the best out of my training. So it's definitely much easier to train on my own schedule. But obviously the drawbacks is that I don't always have access to feedback in the moment. So I might if I had a phone with data, but I don't. And I train in a gym specifically where I don't have access to the Wi-Fi. So if I don't have access to the Wi-Fi, then I can't send in my videos in real time. And I think in a way that sort of prepares me for competition, where Greg can't be there to coach me most times anyway. So I kind of have to self-coach to a large degree. But otherwise, it's been great. And I mean, as soon as I send my videos, he's like that with feedback. So I'll always have it for the next session to work on. And I keep notes pretty diligently, so I always know what it is I'm supposed to be focusing on for the next session. There's never any doubt about that.
Yeah. Very serious and meticulous about your training.
I try to be, mostly just because I am that way, but I'm a little bit scatterbrained. If I don't, I'll forget things quite easily. So it's good to have that note. And I find with weightlifting, the things that you once you get something that works, you can't just forget about it. That'll come back around later, and you'll realize that you've been focusing on other things, and you have to return to those cues over and over again. So if you don't have that as a note, you can look back at your training history and see what you were thinking on that day where everything was just clicking, and go back to that.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to remember, because I find myself going through that as well. Finding something that works, forgetting about it, and coming back to it.
Yeah, you're oh, that cue. Time. Legs, I'm supposed to use them. Weird.
Yep, definitely get that.
Yeah, so and I encourage the athletes that I coach to track their training as well, just because as a coach, I don't expect my coach to keep track of every lift that I've hit my best for everything. That's up to me. So I need to know if I get an open-ended heavy day on an exercise, I need to know what my best is for that exercise, and I can't just call him up and ask him and have him check the records. They should be my records. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So, kind of give us a little bit of background. We're interested to know how did you start weightlifting?
Yeah,
begin for you.
Really boring intro story. I didn't have any sports background at all when I started. I started when I was 22, in my last year of university. Sort of in a roundabout way. I was just looking to get in shape. I was in my early 20s. I hadn't really done any kind of training. I wasn't an unathletic person, but I had never been formally introduced to sports or anything. If you asked me to climb a tree, I could have. I could do pull-ups, and I didn't know how to squat, though. I'd never worked with barbells or training equipment or anything. I wouldn't have known how to, start anywhere in a gym, commercial or weightlifting or otherwise. And so I was just looking for a way to get in shape. I had done some body weight stuff, just some interval stuff. And then my boyfriend at the back then he's still my boyfriend now, I don't know why I said that. But like, I mean, when I started, he got me training with weights, just with him at his house, just in the garage or in his room. And then my dad said, hey, you should look into something called CrossFit. But this was back in the early days of CrossFit. It was still like CrossFit HQ. You would look up the daily workout. So I looked it up. The workout of the day had snatches and something else. But there was no CrossFit gym near me. I wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway, so I never actually did CrossFit. But I went down an internet rabbit hole of, what's a snatch? Whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
How do I learn this? Like, there's a gym in my university the whole time I went there.
Yeah.
It's in the basement. It's hidden away. Like, in the back, they have this brand new gym upstairs. It was new at the time, and gorgeous facility. And then, like, in the basement down the hall is the weightlifting facility, which itself is gorgeous, but like, they completely undersell it. They do not promote this gym as much as they should, given how amazing it is. And then at the time, this was probably like April before my very last year. And then there was no info online on how to start it. There was just some times and days of when does the high performance team train. It was 7 to 10, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, well, I don't even know how to do this. I'm not going to be high performance athlete. I just want to learn how to do it. But there was no information on that, so I kind of waited all through the summer, worked through the summer, just doing landscaping, like every day, just thinking about like, okay, the first day of school, I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask someone who works there how I can start this. And so I thought about it the whole summer, and the very first day of school in my last year, I went to the program coordinator, his name is Andrew Bellerby, and he put me in contact with a lifter named Richard Gonzalez, who was a student at the time at the university, but he also ran the intro program, which they didn't advertise anywhere. And so I started with Richard. He now works for Alico, actually, so he's way up there.
Yeah.
And he taught me the basics, and then eventually it was like, okay, now you can move to the competitive team, which was quite small at the time, and a lot of the really high performance lifters had retired and just moved on, so it was kind of a transition period for the team.
So the university had a competitive team? The
university had a competitive team, yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
So a lot of really, really high performance lifters came out of there. Akash Sandor, Miguel McGarrigle, Albert Pilon were all really, really good lifters out of that club, but they were kind of on their way. Miel was having a baby, Akash was mostly retired. So luckily for me, I guess, because otherwise, like, I was snatching 40, 45 kilos maybe. Like, I don't know if I would have been allowed on that team unless it was that transition period for the club, so I got kind of lucky there. Yeah. But yeah, I never looked back. Just kept going.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of glad in a way that I didn't discover it earlier. On one hand, I was like, damn it, I should have been doing this for 4 years. I've been here for 4 years. It's hidden in the basement. I didn't even know about it. Yeah. But my grades really suffered in that 4th year when I was like, oh, I don't care about anything anymore. This is it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because for me, I discovered weightlifting around my university years too. A little bit later, I started getting serious, but same thing. Had I committed to training, more consistently during that period of time, it would have been so difficult. To cover those things. Something would have suffered, right?
Either you start training and then you stop, put that aside, or your grades suffer. And usually the grades are going to come first. So especially at the beginning. So I'm glad it happened the way that it did. I think it's gone pretty well so far. I mean, it could always have started earlier, but there's nothing I can do about that. So.
Yeah. Well, here you are today.
Yeah.
You're still climbing, so.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Another 40 kilos onto the snatch, right?
Yeah, there you go.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were like hooked on weightlifting since you started at this club. Although probably a lot of the things since you've started weightlifting have changed. What are some things that you still love about weightlifting?
I guess it's mostly the same stuff that I fell in love with when I started. Just the routine. I'm really, really good with just doing the same things over and over and trying to perfect them, and finding ways to be excited about that and instead of bored. I guess a lot of people probably get bored with doing the same thing over and over, but for me it's just like it's an opportunity, you get to try it over and over. So I mean, like, I learned bowling for the first time a couple months ago, and immediately I was like, this is just like weightlifting. I'm throwing the exact same ball down the exact same lane at the exact same. I could do this. I'm like, you guys go home. I will be here for the next 3 hours until I figure this out. So just that kind of like obsessive nature, I guess, is sort of what carries me through. But I don't know. Like, I've never played another sport, so I don't know how my interest in weightlifting would compare to an interest in another sport. I don't know if the lessons are the same. I assume that they are pretty universal for most sports. Like, things that you get out of it would be the things that you get out of any sport, and those are sort of things that I'm still interested in. Lately it's been shifting more in an interest to the mental side of it. So when I was first learning, it was like, cool, this is something that I can do with my body that I've never done before. Like, I can actually exercise in a way that isn't exercising. It's thinking about something and working through it, and at the end of it you get a great workout. But it's not going in just to pump iron for 3 hours and then you go home and you're exhausted. So it was thinking through it, but it was learning the physical skill was super interesting, and that still is to me. Like, I'm still interested in perfecting technique as much as I possibly can, and working through it and improving it each time. And I think that annoys Greg sometimes, because he's like, stop thinking about it so much, like, just do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm obsessing a little bit much. But now it's become more of a focus for me, and the real interest is in the mental side. How do I get the best out of my mind to get the best out of my body? Because that's what's going to hold me back way before my body gives up. Like, your physical potential is so much higher than what your brain will allow. And I mean, everybody who's dedicated time to weightlifting sees that and goes through it. When you hit those plateaus that are 1 or 2 kilos below, it's just like no problem, and then you attempt that and you get stuck. So just working through that stuff, and then, like we talked about earlier, with just regulating emotions in competition, regulating emotions in training, and that's kind of become my bigger interest at this point. But I'm sure it'll go back and forth. I mean, it's both.
Yeah, definitely. And that is one of the really cool things about weightlifting, is how mentally intensive it is.
Right. Also
being physically intensive too. There's so much going on, right? And our workouts and our competitions, and trying to fine tune everything is very challenging.
Yeah.
You know?
And like I said, I don't know if that's, I would assume that that's something that you get in all sports. Like, once you start to want to master anything, it's going to be there's no sport that's just purely physical. Like, there's always the mental component to performance, which is why it's so important. But yeah, it's have it, like, just to see it as a spectator, you would never know really, if you hadn't done it, that so much of it is just focus and intention and commitment to lifting it instead of just physical skill.
There's so much that goes on and happens in that split second.
You
see someone approach a platform, they pick up a weight, they throw it in the air, and then it's all over. And then as a spectator, you're like, wow, that's cool. But, you know, as an athlete, like, a million things go through your mind, right? You're calculating and you're recalibrating.
And I mean, that lift is made or missed, like, before you even touch the thing.
Oh, totally. Totally. It's funny you mention that, because I firmly believe the same thing. It's a mental thing. If you've already defeated yourself, if there's a shred of doubt that you can't make that weight, it's not going up. There's no such thing. Well, it's very rare to encounter a miracle, and you can't really count on it.
It definitely probably won't be at that heavy weight. I mean, it's funny, because when you do it, you're like, that just happened all by itself. I didn't do anything. People are like, how are you so strong? You're like, I didn't actually do any of it. It just went over my head. But then everything before that was like, no, you have to be certain you're going to do it. Like, I can miss 55 kilos if I really if I really thought about it,
You're
like,
I don't
there's
know.
nothing that's guaranteed.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I'm gonna pause for a second. I guess in weightlifting, obviously, speaking about mental stuff and I guess challenges, obviously there's adversity in weightlifting.
Yeah.
You know, and you've probably had more than your fair share of those. And we kind of want to get your thoughts on, you know, what do you like to do? How do you usually approach things when you encounter adversity in weightlifting?
I guess it depends on what the adversity is. So, I mean, for most things, the easiest thing to do is just kind of like go with the flow. So, I mean, I don't know, like, if you want specifics, like in terms of managing training with your life.
Go as detailed as you want.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, like, if you're I mean, adversity is that's just such a broad subject. Adversity with managing training with your life. I don't know. I mean, I guess now it's much easier. Like, my life is quite routine at this point. So, but it took a while to get it there. So, but I did whatever I could to make weightlifting happen. And I think it's important, like, I had enough going on in my life outside of weightlifting where, like, I had finished school, so I had my undergrad, and I was looking for a job that would allow me to train at the same time. And it was a shitty job. It was like, and I jumped from job to job. Like, I would be in a job, and then as soon as I got it, okay, how do I find another job that fits training just a little bit better? But in the back of my mind, like, there would be nights where I'm just like, I would finish training at midnight. I'd have to run. I wasn't driving at the time. I was taking a bus. It took me like 2 hours to get home, not even exaggerating. Like, I would get home well past midnight with my gym bag, my school bag, my laptop, my containers from my whole day of food, like, everything on me. But in the back of my mind, I was like, if I want to quit, I can just quit. Like, this isn't something that I have to do. This is something that I'm choosing to do, and I believe that it's going to pay off, and it's going to pay off at the point where I can take some of the pressure off financially. Like, what do I need to do to get karting? Okay, how do I work towards that? Because once I reach that, this is going to be a little bit easier. And then it was just, how do I make this a little bit easier, a little bit easier? But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if I really, really reach that breaking point, I'll just quit. It's fine. Or I'll take a break or whatever. I mean, I probably wouldn't have taken a break because I'm like either all in or that's it. And that was always there. Yeah. I was never like, I have to do weightlifting to pay the bills. It was never going to pay. I was not paying bills to do weightlifting. So it was purely a choice. And I guess acknowledging that is important, that it was something that I was choosing to do. Like, you don't have to train weightlifting if you don't want to. It's fine. Like, I have athletes who come and go, and you see people and they're in it for a while and they work really hard, and then they're putting too much stake in their training, and they're not able to find balance, or they're either like, they think it needs to be everything, and it should. Like, if you really want it and you love doing it, then absolutely. Like, I did whatever I could to make training work, not because I thought that it was like going to be this huge long thing that I'm still doing 7 years later. It was just like, I loved it every day, and it was what I really, really wanted to do. And I could see those moments down the road where I was like, if I do this opportunity will open up and it'll get easier. So if I get there and I find that opportunity isn't as good as I thought or whatever, then I can always just bow out, and I don't have to do this anymore, and I can go and get a 9 to 5 and try and train in the evening or something. So I guess just like, but I pushed until that point, and I was like, okay, I can push a little bit more. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And luckily, like, I had a really good support group. Like, my teammates were fairly steady and consistent in training in that time period, which is important. So you don't see a lot of people dropping out and then you're like, maybe I should quit too. It was very much like, yes, I'm going in this and seeing my friends every day, and we're going to get through this together, and everybody was going through something and trying to balance something. And my parents never made me feel like I should be doing something else or focusing on going back to school or getting a job in science or whatever. It was, and I think that was just because they knew that whatever it was that I was doing, I was going to work really hard at, just because it's how I did everything. So they really trusted me and just kind of let me do my thing, even when I was like, this is insane. And I mean, they would tell me like, this is crazy. Like, I would be like, Mom, you have to come pick me up. The buses have stopped. Like, I can't walk home anymore. I missed the last bus. Can you come pick me up? It's like 1 a.m. or something. So, yeah, those nights were not the most fun, but definitely being able to find that balance is super important. And you have to know why you're doing it to be able to find that balance. Otherwise, you're just like, I don't know what this is worth to me, so I can't manage it. And then, I guess adversity within a training session, like missing lifts and stuff.
Absolutely, that's a big one.
I don't like missing lifts very much anymore. I used to be super accustomed to it because it was the way that I trained for a long time, so it was like a very Bulgarian system, but a little bit, it wasn't a true Bulgarian system. So a true Bulgarian system would be to a daily max, whatever you can do for that day. But this was, it was different. It was too much, and it was mentally really draining. Like, you would miss a lift and then attempt it again and then miss a lift and then maybe go back down and then work back up and miss the same thing over and over. But it's not good mentally, obviously, but it wasn't good in that I got used to missing, and it was not a big deal because I was like, oh, just try it again. I'll just be here all night until I make it. That's fine, and then I'll move on. And sometimes you would make it and it would be the most awful make ever. You almost died and you just did it just so you can move on. You don't usually want to train like that, but it was making me too comfortable with missing in competition. And I mean, that's the goal of all of this, is you only get 3 attempts and you want each of them to be different. And you want each of them to count and be important. So, but having that limitation in training is important. So, but I mean, obviously there are days where you're like, it's just not happening today. And I've been doing this for long enough at this point where I feel like I've had every experience. I'm probably not, but not at all. But I've had enough experiences at this point where I'm like, you know what? It's just not there today. I'm just going to call it. Or I'm going to work back down and do the sets at a lighter weight and make them really, really good. Or I'm going to change the focus somehow. Or, you miss the lift and you're like, well, why did I miss the lift? Maybe I can make it. Maybe it's like a mental thing. And I can kind of tell at this point, and at this point it's a lot of that is the self-evaluation that I'm having to do in training most days, just being a remote athlete. Those can be the tough days where you're like, Greg, what do you want me to do? I don't know. Like, send me a sign. Like, do I keep trying this, or do I just give it up? I don't know. But just being able to kind of like self-evaluate that. And I mean, part of that is just having the experience. So, it's fine. We've been here before. It'll be okay next week. Or whatever. Yeah.
No, and it's really cool to actually hear about your story of like first starting weightlifting and this adversity of training super late to the point of actually missing bus.
Well, it's so I forgot we're not in Ontario right now, but anyway, there's a bus now there's an express bus. I'm like, I wish that was there when I was in school, but it wasn't. So it was like, this bus connects to this bus, you run across the street to make that go bus, and he's not gonna wait. Like, I see this guy every single day, and I'm like, he's not going to wait for me. Like, I'm sprinting with all my stuff. So those are some dark days.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the reason why we wanted to do stuff like, this, right? It's because you never get to hear these stories unless you're talking about your friends who probably know you and know this kind of stuff, right?
And I mean, I'm not complaining at all. Like I said, like, this was
your choice, right?
It sucked, but I was like, this is how it has to be for now until I can catch a break, or like until I can move to the next level, or until I can get a car, or until I can whatever. So, and I mean, my teammates were, like, I had teammates who were starting businesses while they were trying to train, or they were in school, or they were working on a master's or something. So everybody was kind of like stressed out, and and you have those examples of like, my situation's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're never like, as an athlete, you're never one to complain anyway. Like, if you're serious about it, you're like, well, this is just
part of the process.
It's just part of it, yeah. And I mean, there's no point in feeling sorry for yourself. Either figure it out or don't do it.
Yeah. There's no in between.
No. Well, there's just no point in complaining about it unless you can change it.
Yeah, I think you very quickly start to realize that you can shout and scream and yell at a barbell moment all you want.
Yeah.
But the only way to get it over your head is just to do it, just to pick it up.
Yeah.
It's unforgivable. It doesn't care about what kind of day you had.
It really doesn't.
Yeah. 100 kilos is always 100 kilos.
Yeah. It
doesn't change depending on the mood or whatever. So.
Which makes it seem crazy that like you would ever miss a lift. Because you're like, I've lifted this 8 million times. How am I missing it right now?
Well, it's funny you say that, actually. I guess going back to adversity, and this is a very, very common theme for myself, for Mark, and for a lot of our teammates in our clubs as well. You go through your training cycles, and you always have ups and downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you go through those downs or those troughs in your training, it's like you're thinking, oh, numbers I've been hitting before. Suddenly, like 80% is like 100% now. What's wrong with me? Am I getting weaker? Is my program off? Like,
for sure.
And it's very easy to get into a mental trap with that kind of stuff. When that happens to yourself, I guess. What kind of things do you tell yourself? What kind of checks and stops do you use to get yourself out of that?
Yeah. I mean, that can be where the journaling comes in handy.
Yeah.
Where you can look back and be like, oh yeah, right before this amazing performance, I had 2 weeks where everything sucked.
Yeah.
Cool, maybe that'll be this time too.
Okay.
So definitely the journaling helps with that. And then, I mean, at some point, there have been points where I realized that I was the one holding myself back, and I hadn't mentally allowed myself to advance to the next. It's usually a block of 10, so like it took me forever to finally get an 80 kilo clean and jerk, and then it took me forever to get to 90. But like all the stuff in between was fine. So it was just like allowing myself to be like, cool, I clean and jerk 90 now. Any given day, it's fine. Like it's not a big deal. And like the next step for that is going to be an 80 kilo plus snatch. Like I've snatched it in training, but I just did 78 today in competition, and hopefully like 80 plus is right around the corner. But that has to be something that I allow myself. So sometimes it's just like mentally you're just waiting around for things to improve instead of giving yourself that space. And it can be really powerful when you're just like, it's not a big deal anymore. And then it happens.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even like a training thing. I mean, if you're injured, that's a different story. But and I mean, in that case, like that's a whole other ball game. But if you're just plugging away and you're doing your thing, some days suck. But if it's like a perpetual thing, like you can take a look at, am I the one who's not allowing myself to move on to the next level? Yeah. Injuries, I mean, that's another adversity, but.
And I'm sure you've probably had some injuries.
Not too many, luckily, that have been like mega. There's only one that was really tough to get through, where I had to miss an international comp because of it, but it ended up resolving itself really well. I had subluxed my SI, so it kind of like shifted. I couldn't do anything for like 2 weeks. Couldn't even bend over. Couldn't pick up an empty barbell. Like couldn't do anything. And all I did was go to a Good Life, try every single machine, make a list of the ones that I could do without pain, including like the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
And I was just doing those until it got better. And I saw a bunch of, I saw a sports doctor. I saw my chiro. They're all just like, it's a pulled ligament. It'll get better in 6 to 8 weeks. I'm like, okay, well. University Worlds is tomorrow, so I had to bow out of that one, and but it wasn't getting better. And then one day it clicked, like I heard it and felt it. It was sickening. It's clicked back into place, and immediately I was like, I can put my socks on again, like I could do everything. So I mean, I've had little injuries here and there, but nothing where it was like I was out for a significant period of time apart from that one and that was the first one because it wasn't getting better, and it was so, like, immediately I couldn't pick up anything, I couldn't do anything. I could barely sit or walk without pain, so that one was the only one where I've been like, I don't know if I can weightlift anymore. Like, am I broken forever? Is this it? Is this the very, very end? And then 2 weeks later, it was like, oh my God, this is a miracle. Yeah. But all of those other ones, you can track progress on it and improve it, so you kind of see the end of the tunnel. But this one was just, it was rough, but nothing, luckily, knock on wood, where it's been like super tough to get. I mean, I've had teammates who've had surgery, and then one of my teammates, he's actually like because of the way that he dealt with this, is like, you're so inspirational, because he messed up his knee, he had surgery on it, and it was like, the doctors gave him a choice, like, you can have a less invasive surgery, you can get back to training, but you'll never have full range in that knee, or you can have a better surgery, but you'll be out of weightlifting, like, you won't even be able to walk for like a year. He was in crutches for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months or something, like, and that was just after the period after the surgery, like, just even leading up to the surgery, he couldn't weightlift, so he's probably out of weightlifting for like a year and a half, and he's finally like getting back to his old numbers and stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. But like, being able to make that decision for yourself, where you're like, I want to get back to training right now, but having to take the path where you're going to spend more time, and who knows if it goes well and your recovery goes well, and being able to see that long term is amazing. And I luckily don't know what that's like yet, but hopefully I never have to. I mean, part of it's like just the risk that you take with sport, any sport, but a lot of it's like, you can kind of see where, I should have taken care of that imbalance or this imbalance. And
totally.
Yeah, just being aware of that stuff.
Yeah, we can all relate to that.
Always dealing with imbalances.
Yeah, it's crazy. The bar only moves in one direction. Like, why do I have to be balanced in all of these other ways? But I don't need biceps. I don't even use my biceps. Well, they're still attached to your arms. So.
Yeah, it's funny. It was actually, I don't know, this theory of mine where it's like, you pretty much need just about every muscle in your body, to weightlift. Every muscle, ligament, tendon. If you injure anything, I guess, other than your face.
Yeah, totally.
You won't be able to weightlift.
Yeah.
So
don't need a face.
You don't need a face. You don't need to be able to
faceless
smile.
lifter. Scares this competition.
So I guess just wrapping this up here, just one last question.
Sure.
Right. So you have a lot of followers on Instagram. And people look up to you.
7 grand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
So I guess do you have any advice for athletes who look up to you and want to take their training to the next level?
Be in it to be in it. Like, I'm a coach, so I see this a lot too, where I have athletes who come in, and I mean, everybody you want to start something, and then you want to feel like you're improving at it, and that at some point you're going to be good, but it's not sustainable. You have to be interested in it to improve at it for the sake of it. Like, it doesn't, like, I didn't know that if I worked for 7 years, I'd be able to start making international teams. Like, I didn't know that. There's no way I could have known that. I didn't even know if I was going to make provincials, but it was like, I loved doing it, and so I showed up every day, and then it was like, okay, well, what do I have to do to make the first step? What do I have to do to make provincials? What's the standard for it? And then work towards that, and I kept my goals super short term, and I had just tunnel vision every single day. How do I improve at this movement? And I got really, really into like the little details, and if you do that, then eventually you look up and you're like, I've come really far, and then you look for the next step, and then you look for the next step. So I didn't concern myself with how good am I going to be, or how good can I be. I had no idea. I was just purely in it, like, because I loved doing it, and that kept me in it every day. And then, I mean, the sport like you have to be in it for a long time to be able to develop that kind of balance that you need, like through your whole body and with your mental strength and stuff. So if you're starting out in weightlifting, love it. Like really just grow to I mean, if you're doing it, there must be something that interests you about it. So really like dig deep on that stuff and don't worry about how good you are compared to lifters. Like I was lucky as well when I started in that there was no Instagram. There were like 2 videos, there was no hook grip. I mean, this was 7 years ago, it's not even that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 2 videos that I watched on repeat. One was Eric Yamasaki training, like leading up to somehow watched it over and over and over. There were like 2 world championships for the 48s from 2005 or something. I just watched those over and over. But I didn't, so I saw that, I was like, cool, that's amazing, that's possible, but it wasn't every day where I'm like scrolling through Instagram, seeing so-and-so hit a PR, and I still don't, like I don't follow my competitors on Instagram, it doesn't matter, like I can't, it's totally an individual sport, so keep doing your thing, and then love it, like take it as far as you can take it, doesn't matter how far you take it compared to anyone else, and be in it to be in it. It's a lifelong sport.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Bonus question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite exercise?
Oh, I don't know. Usually my favorite one is the one that I suck at the most because it's the one that I want to work on the most. So lately it's been like any kind of snatch.
Yeah.
But now that I missed that 100 jerk, it's definitely going to be any kind of jerk.
Now the jerk.
Yeah, I know
right
it's
on.
coming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That was a close one too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Going into it, I was like, this is going to be really heavy. You really, really have to work, but it's the last lift of the day. Like you can do this. And then I picked up the clean. I was like, oh my god, this clean is so heavy. Just throw your body underneath it somehow. Like, oh my god, I cleaned it. Okay, what am I supposed to do again? I don't know. I'm running out of oxygen. Just go do something. No, it didn't work. It's over so quickly.
Yeah, it's so funny.
That always happens with clean and jerk, especially when you clean it and you're already halfway there. It's like, I put so much effort into this. And then
well, I'm used to that because I used to be able to clean. I used to feel like I could clean anything. Lately, my cleans have been kind of like giving me some trouble, so I was happy to clean it and catch the first bounce and not sit there for a million years or get crushed by it. So the jerk will be there next time. I know it.
Absolutely. We do not doubt it. But thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks. That was fun.
It was awesome watching you compete.
Thank you.